Thank you. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Lesser Known Classics. This is episode number 3081, Doubleshot number 2975. Yes, I have exactly 19 episodes left to go before I reach episode 3100. Yep. Now, basically with this here, we have two X trades, one for the X-Men. Now, yes, I have been reviewing the other miniseries, but this is kind of the beginning of the end. Now, about the time basically this book came out, this era was, from the start, it was well received. Over time, it just felt like it was lasting too long. The fact it didn't feel like some people probably felt that Marvel just killed off the X-Men, made close friend of mine, basically, a friend of mine decided, oh, they kill off the X-Men plant people. I see more like in clone bodies, not necessarily clone people. For one thing, at first they were doing that a lot. Over time, one thing I did notice in the X books, they weren't doing as much as they were at the start of it. You know, killing people off and then bringing people back. Yeah, they didn't do that a lot. Because that was the thing for the first year. They would kill people off, and then just very next year, oh, this came back because of resurrection protocols. And get this. This particular Hellfire Gala features the last ever resurrection ever in the history of the X-Books. With the resurrection protocols. Because after this, they couldn't because of what happened during the actual event. Of course, this trade paperback collects the Free Comic Day issue, which I've kind of discussed already in another book. I think it was the Candy Avengers. X-Men Unlimited, written by Steve Fox and Stephanie Williams. This is X-Men Unlimited, numbers 100 to 105. An issue of Gary Duggan's Iron Man book, which I have read already. The Hellfire Gala one-shot, and it has these artists. It's a lot of artists. It's one-shot. We have Adam Kubert, Lucio Venito, Matt Lowley, Russell Dunneman, Javier Pina, R.B. Silva, Joshua Casera, Chris Aquina, Pepe Lopez. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 artists for one shot. And there's also Hellfire Gala Last Rites. Unlike in the case of the previous Hellfire Gala trade paperback, where it just threw in like a one-shot because they probably felt like included because they couldn't include it anyplace else, so I threw in here. This one, everything here makes sense because, well, yeah, basically, I've already talked about the Free Comic Day issue already, which this book basically contains up until the story where it has the whole thing with Lady Deadpool stuff, and then we get to Hellfire Gala, where we first start off with Cyclops and Emma Frost just sitting on a tree-like swing set. And then we cut to, get this. So, Kamala Khan is resurrected here. Yep. A woman who I should point out that at the time this came out, she had just died in the worst issue of The Amazing Spider-Man by Zeb Wells. Issue 26. She had just died. They did a funeral for her, and then they brought her back as a mutant. Well, she's a mutant, and of course this kind of got fixed over in the pages of the New Mutant slash Mutant Menace two miniseries, where, as for what her mutant powers are, don't know, because her Inhuman side keeps interfering. Now, I'm trying to say this when this happened, is that Gary Duggan made Kamala Khan an Inhuman mutant hybrid. At the time this came out, she had been around in comics for 10 years. 10 years. And killing her off was, in my honest opinion, and a lot of people felt this way, killing her off was an absolute stupid idea. It was one of the most dumbest things Zeb Wells did for his Amazing Spider-Man. Is I'm sure probably he got a lot of criticism for it. I would not be surprised if he got death threats over it. So I'm sure Mark keep it under wrap because they don't publish it anymore. If anybody gets death threats, I mean, I'm not sure how G. Willow Wilson found. I'm not sure she felt about the fact that the way that he just died, it was completely random. It's like, oh, she just turned to Mary J. Watson for reasons and then get killed by the emissary. The Marvel comic version, Benjamin Rentz, which all he was a character who I think a lot of readers have forgot the fact that he existed. My friend Tivy had no idea who the heck this guy was. He had to look this guy up to see who the heck he was because he didn't recognize him. I kind of knew who he was. I say kind of. And the fact, I remember asking Zeb Wells this when I met him about 3 years ago in Orlando. And I did ask him this. After the first issue came out, it was long after the first issue came out, like, did he receive death threats for it? He said yes. Very mild death threats over the first issue. And also, I did ask him this. Is the ending of the previous film, which he wrote, is that can be explained? It was. In the dumbest way possible. Yep, so we have Kamala Khan back here, and she is a mutant. We have Cyclops in his awesome 90s costume. And, and then we have his little celebration. She's back. And she would end up being the final person to be resurrected. No one else ever was revived on Krakoa, because basically what happened next. So we have some celebration. We have just people in their fancy costumes. We have basically and then we have the debut of someone because Kamala Khan gets a new costume. And then we see, according to Alyssa Wong, this is where this first showed up. Because I was curious when the Captain Marvel run first started, where did it show up? I had to ask Alyssa Wong this on Twitter, the current outfit Carol Danvers is wearing. And it debuts right here. Yep, that's her outfit, making its debut here. With, yes, part of the top open up to reveal some cleavage. Which I'm sure probably the artist probably felt as though, hey, Carol Danvers is hot. Let's show basically some skin. So this is the event that debuted this brand new attire for her. And I didn't hear anybody open arms over the fact they changed Carol Danvers' attire. I'm sure people were very happy they changed the attire due to the fact that all it did was basically cover her whole body up, whole body suit. Because a small certain section of people didn't like the fact she showed off skin. The fact she showed off her arms and legs when she was Miss Marvel. So let's make her Captain Marvel by making her wear a full body suit, and the only skin we see is her head. Because here's the thing, when she take up the jacket, you actually see her show off her arms. Yes. We have Rasputin the Fourth here, who's dancing with Camilla. No, Camilla is not being out as bi, just basically just dance. We have more crazy stuff here. Look like they're about to take a vote of who the new X-Men are going to be. They take the vote, and it's Talon, Snitch, Prodigy, Cannonball, Frenzy, Jubilee, the Juggernaut. Yeah, he's out of the roster. Dazzler, you're all new X, and BAM! That's when the Erosions come and basically smash everything up with their Nimrods. Yep. It's like as soon as basically it's like, yeah, that's when the attack happens. And some of the X-Men are murdered, and they can't resurrect people because the Roche is attacking the place. Iceman is basically killed, but don't worry, he comes back. Don't worry, he's not really dead. He comes back in the most weirdest way possible. Juggernaut is basically tossed by Phoenix to launch right at the Nimrods, and it was firing at also Emros's house. And then we see Dr. Stasis, a Verseman, who's dancing with Omega Sentinel. And then this reveal, the fact that MODOK is working with them. Yes, frickin' MODOK, a character who's enemy of the Hulk and Iron Man. which that explains why Iron Man is involved. It's because MODOK is here. So yeah, we have the Stark Sentinels attacking. This is the debut of the Mark II version. Of course, some people think Stark is responsible for these ones. No, he's not. His company built them, but he's not responsible. And of course, the X-Men fight back. And then, of course, Charles Xavier surrenders, but then all the X-Men flee the island. But also, of course, that the gateways are all cut off. No mutants go back to Krakoa because a racist has the control of it. So then we have the whole secret weapon thing. And of course, they try to figure a way to strike back. Cyclops has been wounded, taking the Wolverine all bloodied here because they try to go back, but basically people get breaking their noses. Yeah. Everybody flees, but then of course I think it's time for Mary. You see the Kingpin there. She apparently does die, but she comes back, and Kingpin basically is wondering what the heck is going on. By the way, he's later named the White King in the Hellfire Club, and as of currently, he still holds that title. Yeah, and of course, Rogue basically destroys some androids, rescue Xavier, but then of course Xavier is left behind. Yep. And then we lead into where Wilson Fisk. Now, those would be curious about Wilson Fisk being here. Is that this was revealed in the previous X book that his wife is a mutant and Typhoid Mary, and he declares basically citizenship marriage because he's married mutant, so legally he's allowed to live in Krakoa. Which, okay, fine. Despite the fact that he's a convicted felon and one of the most notorious suit villains. But he's able to work with them because, of course, they threaten his wife. And also he becomes a key player in basically turning the X-Men, X-Men's win against Orocious because of the whole stuff with Captain Krakoa. Because it was revealed in the Kenny Avengers book that he actually was an eyewitness for Cyclops because a lot of the time Cyclops was Captain Krakoa, but this time when Krakoa was attacking DC, that wasn't Scott Summers, that was Sybil Rogers, aka Hydra Cap. So then Catherine gets captured, and then we go to the X-Men, so basically show what some of the other X-Men are up to. We see Surge, Prodigy, basically people who are part of the new X-Men series, which I really enjoyed it. It's mostly put some in with Cannonball, Jubilee. It's side stories with all these characters, which fine. There's even one here with Jimbo Kasson. She's just a character from the X books. Yeah, it's like a lot of side stories of characters, what they're up to during the Hellfire Gala before the event happened, like while the party was going on. That's kind of what these other stuff are. And then, of course, Iron Man is basically like the whole thing. This is where, like, chronologically, like, his thing, because it's a loose tie into this thing, it's basically how he gets involved, the Fall Crow stuff. And that's pretty much it here. And here's the cover here that shows off Carol Danvers' brand new suit, which the only addition she made to was the fact she basically put on boots with it. Yeah. For the final Hellfire Gala, this thing, it was actually pretty good. I actually enjoyed this one. Unlike the first one, where it felt like it didn't really say everything aside from a crossover which was most of the pages of Eternals. It had a limited build of also Avengers, but it had zero build up in X-Men. Zero. It felt as though that Alright. Yeah, it felt as though that the event itself was just built up for simply no reason for X-Men. Like, at least Avengers and Eternals, basically, there was build up. Not in the case of X-Men. Nope, there was barely any. The issue which had built for the Avengers was actually was built mostly Eternals. They had one issue Eternals where for some reason the artist decided to have and I've heard of this basically in my review of this particular book, like, then we see an old lady cosplaying as Carol Danvers. And apparently it's supposed to be Carol Danvers, despite the fact it's an old lady. And then the very next panel, she's fixed. I'm like, why would Marvel allow that in? Because when people see this book, like, oh, it's an old lady cosplaying as Carol Danvers. Yep. So, let's start off with a very controversial book. So we go from a really good book here with the fall of Hellfire, with the fall of X, with the third final Hellfire Gala. We go back in time to 2017, roughly 8 years ago, to one of the most controversial X-Men books ever released, Iceman. I remember basically when he was outed as gay. It was, of course, this is not past Iceman. This is present Iceman. He was outed as gay in issue 600, which came out right after All New X-Men 641, which is the final issue of the first volume. Which, by the way, this happened roughly this year, 10 years ago. They've outed him as gay, and Marvel still won't undo this. Because, of course, this was probably by far one of Marvel's most dumb decisions they made in the past, 13 years. Yes. Since they did the whole, since the Marvel Night relaunch of 2012, this decision to out him as gay is one of the most controversial decisions they've ever made. It was something that nobody cared for. I'm sure Bendis himself has taken some flack, a lot of criticism for this. But the thing is, this happened in his last issue of All New X-Men. His final issue, 41. A run that was actually really good up until the last issue. That past Iceman, they outed him as gay because, and a friend of mine theorized as of why that this happened. I kind of buy this. Jean Grey forced him to be gay. Well, past. So, and of course, the writer himself is controversial, like this book is, Sonia Grace. Because it was during this when it was coming out that he decided to put his foot in his mouth. On Twitter. Yes, seriously. And of course, he was brought back to do the successive volume. I've never really cared for his attitude. I'm not sure what exactly he said, but I heard he put his foot in his mouth. Of course, this book contains the first 5 issues of Iceman Volume 2. Asar Vazari does issues 1, 3, and 5, and 2 and 4 is done by Edgar Asler with Ivan Robinson, the art for issue, co-art with you too. So, basically, it's all focused on present day Iceman, not past Iceman. Present day. Yes, they had Jean Grey, the past version for Gala solo book, which that was really good. I actually enjoyed that one. This book, I was not the biggest fan. I got some dumb decisions made in this book. So first, we start off with past and present Iceman just having a scrimmage battle with each other, and then of course he goes off, and then he gets informed that his father's in the hospital. Now, if you're really, really curious, is this the first time we've ever seen Iceman's parents? I don't think so, no. Some people may have think that the first time that people saw these characters was actually in the second X-Men film. Actually, no, this is Iceman Volume 3. Excuse me about that. Yeah, it was off by one volume because there was one volume released in 2002. So, I did love the covers of this book. So, Bobby's father debuted in X-Men 44 back in the 60s, though it was debuted as a backup feature of the book. Yep, this is also the debut of, I believe, Bobby's mom. Melanine Bliss, aka Melanine Drake. Yeah, she debuted there, and he does have a niece and nephew who debuted in the pages of the first Iceman miniseries. And he later died in an Infinite comic, which came out a few years ago. Yep. Well, you did be a new character who is a character who can fire herself with her saliva, and she's just a character exclusively for this book. She did show up in the next line for the book. Most of what she's active in the first arc, but then she's featured a little bit afterwards. Her last known appearance actually was in a one-shot that came out, which I'll talk about in the third trade paperback there. So, basically, William Drake, Bobby Drake's father. Now, of course, the whole thing of him being a mutant. This actually was returned for these two characters. If you're really curious, when was the last time they physically appeared?